All right, so welcome to our first general body meeting of the 2021 school year. We're going to get started talking about what we're going to be doing for this semester. It's going to be a little different than normal and a little different than what we're going to be doing, hopefully, for the spring if we're back in person and in the future. So our goals for this year are to expand our podcasting department. We have a really great opportunity right now to focus on podcasting and get that underway and solidified. We're also going to be working to solidify the sports broadcasting department, which is interesting. So there's no sports games going on campus, but we're still going to try and get acquainted with CUA athletics and get started with all of that. Also, Holly's been doing a great job so far with helping promote WCUA, despite the fact that we're not in person. Working on professionalizing the station. We have some new equipment coming in to hopefully do that, and of course, sticking to our production standards. We're going to be engaging in some more promotional and volunteer activities, so I'm working on getting us involved in virtual volunteering, which isn't ideal, but again, it's some way that we can all come together and help out the community. And of course, creating smoother broadcasting procedures, which we're always working on, and working on podcasting procedures as well. I'm gonna throw it over to Max and he can kind of walk through how this semester is gonna be a little different from our typical semester.
Yeah, so a typical semester for everyone that has been with the WCUA kind of knows how it goes. We have a typical schedule. People fall in their hour-long slots. We have a variety of different shows, and we do different events. So the events that we did last year that were a big success were the Totally Tuesdays on the patio, where we did spotlights for different DJs, and we did those a couple hours in the evenings on Tuesdays. We did that most of first semester, and we were about to pick it up second semester when all this happened. Other events that we did were emceeing some of the open mic nights with program board and helping out with emceeing for Carnalpalooza, as well as Fall Festival. This semester is going to look a little different, though, because of the COVID restrictions. So there's going to be reduced studio access. So the amount of people that are allowed in and out of the studio each day is going to change. So you're not going to see, show after show after show after show after show. There's only going to be a certain amount of shows per day, shows per week, and who's allowed in the studio is going to be limited. Those that are allowed in the studio can be socially distant. We're going to have to, once we're allowed back on campus, we're going to have to reconfigure the studio so that that's the case, and it's going to have to be cleaned pretty regularly. That being said, though, we're looking to do pre-recorded shows that we could play, as well as doing remote broadcasts like Totally Tuesdays throughout the week. Some of those include doing broadcasts in the actual communities the freshmen are living in Opus and CB this year, doing remote broadcasts outside, making a community thing, as well as outside of the Priz, like the Totally Tuesdays. We're looking to do those. We're also looking to try and do rerun for the sports broadcasts. Paul will talk about that later. But the main thing that we're focusing on is the podcasting. I think this is something that is great, something that we were starting up last semester. And this is the perfect time to keep going with that. We have a couple new shows, and I'm sure that will be touched upon later on in the presentation, but podcasting is great because it's not just like the regular show where it's just a certain time. You can feed it out and have anyone listening to it at any time. It gives you flexibility on when you can record, on different topics, on length, who you work with, stuff like that. but these are the different things that we're doing to kind of respond to not being on campus or not being on campus in the fullest capacity.
Just some notes on expectations and professionalism, especially for people who are new. Try sticking to deadlines for podcasts. We're going to try and have weekly cycles of deadlines. So I'll go into this in more detail later, but we want scripts for what the podcast, or an outline for what the episode is going to be like at the beginning or a certain day of the week, and we should be posting by that same day the next week. And so it'll kind of continue like that. We'll be posting on the same day. We should be getting a script and continuing onward like that. For when we are in the studio, of course, focus on being on time or finding a replacement. For podcasts, of course, that's just, letting your editors know and letting me know ahead of time. And focusing on the structure of the hour is really important, especially for podcasts. You want a solid introduction and conclusion, and you want to have this kind of uniformed for all of your episodes. Central theme and planning is really important for this. And we're also going to start using advertisements about halfway through each episode so that we can kind of include more organizations at CUA into what we're doing. And then, of course, we'll have station committee applications going out soon for freshmen. So if you're interested in helping out, one of the e-board members with something, like you really want to get involved in podcasting, or you're really interested in helping with social media stuff, that's definitely something that you should consider, is applying for station committee. And just some more details on remote broadcast. So again, we mentioned we're going to be doing Totally Tuesdays, but essentially Totally Tuesdays and Thursdays. And we'll have sign-up slots for that if and when we are back in person. Again, they'll be in your residence halls, and they will be broadcasted live. Hopefully this is the plan, over the radio as well. So we will need people to kind of help coordinate that in the studio and on location. And hopefully, I don't know if we'll be able to do this, but I'd like to open this up also to anyone who's on campus, so freshmen as well, hopefully getting involved in that once that's set up. And again, Max is going to be kind of the person to go to for things like this. So if you're interested in getting involved, he's definitely someone that you should email about that. I'm going to throw this over now to Paul, who's going to talk about our sports broadcasting a little more, and what we're going to be doing this semester.
Yeah, so sports broadcasting is actually relatively new to WCUA. Let me rephrase. There has been a hockey broadcast for a couple of years now. That was generally our only sports broadcast. Hockey is a club sport, not NCAA. This spring, we started doing basketball as well as hockey, and we're starting to do lacrosse, baseball, incorporating softball as well. And this fall, we are hoping to do every sport, have broadcasters available for all home games. Obviously, that didn't happen. So generally, to a broadcast team, there are 3 members. You've got 2 people on site, and you've got a third one back in the studio making sure that it's being broadcast through caster.fm, which is our streaming server. And that's what the audio engineer is. It's really not a hard job. You go, you make sure that the connection stays online. And the 2 people that are on site, you've got a play-by-play, you've got a color commentator. You can alternate, you can choose roles, and it's, as long as you act professional and do the job right, it's not that big a deal. Yeah, we're always looking for broadcasters. So yeah, sports during COVID, obviously, since there's no NCAA athletics going on this fall, we're still going to be active, still looking for content. We're going to be hoping to interview with both athletes and coaches. I think that's a great way to kind of get into behind the scenes with the sports. Catholic University has had several successful championship runs in the last few years. So I'm going to try to contact sports athletic communications, because I know that we have footage of a lot of our previous games. And if we're able to access that and get a couple broadcasters per game and kind of host that live, like a lot of other clubs are doing movie nights or simply like a meeting or something. And if we're able to play that and have an audience and have live broadcasting, or even if it's pre-recorded broadcasting, but live would be preferred, that would be awesome to keep sports broadcasting coming. It's good practice, broadcasters, and it's a good way to keep us relevant with the community. And yeah, oh, okay.
Sorry, did you want to add anything else on to what you were saying?
No, that's all.
Okay, if you have any questions about that, you can contact Paul or me. So a little more about podcasting. So we release to a lot of different platforms, but Spotify and iTunes are probably the primary places that we get the most listeners. We're of course aiming to have uniform formatting, which I'll go into a little bit. Again, it's a lot of planning, like probably a little more than when we're doing live shows. So for anyone who's considering transitioning over to doing a podcast, it will require some planning ahead of time if you weren't as used to that for doing live shows. Again, we'll post scheduling dates as we start getting more into the swing of things. And if you have any questions, you can email me or our general email, radiowcua@gmail.com. So essentially for standards for recording, we know that you're recording for home, so it's not going to be, studio quality. And essentially what everything here means is try to speak clearly into your mic, but do not shout into it, and try and have kind of a uniform level of loudness going on. So if you have someone who is calling in, try and make sure that you are speaking at relatively the same volume. Don't use material that's already been recorded, because re-recording material that's already recorded, so playing recorded material, will come across really fuzzy. And try and stay, a relatively uniform distance from your mic. And when you're exporting, try and get those files to your editors or to me as either a WAV or an MP3 file will be good too. And for content standards, again, like this will come through with the planning, but stick to a central theme, story, or idea. It'll help guide the podcast a lot better. Comply with WCUA's content policy, same as if you have a radio show. So don't curse or say anything that's going to go against that policy, especially since this is going to be recorded. So, someone might hear it who, hears something that goes against this policy that you don't want to be hearing. And yeah, basically try and get those scripts to us a good distance out so that those can get approved and you can start recording, and it won't all be last minute. So you can maintain that flexibility that Max was talking about comes with recording a podcast. We're also working on collaborations, working with the Tower for ads and a few other organizations actually. Holly's done a really great job of doing Instagram and talking about Takeover. So she can give you some more details on what she's been doing to help promote the station.
Yeah, so I've been posting a lot on Instagram, stuff like that. If anyone has any trivia questions about music, anything related to radio, you can send them to me and we're working on posting them. Also, I've been working on creating a website. So that's what that image is right there. It's just a sneak peek. And it's basically going to have our schedule, links to the podcasts, and about our sports broadcasting and stuff like that. It also has like pictures of our members. It's not like published yet, but it will be eventually. But yeah, it's going to have a lot of information on there. But if you have any other ideas for like stuff for me to post or just how we can promote and be a better, like bigger part of the community, let me know.
And then 1900 hours.
Oh, also one more thing. we're going to be starting Instagram takeovers. So I'm going to be sending a Google sheet to everyone. And then there's going to be like 2 or 3 spots per week, and you take over the Instagram for a day.
And Mike and I, so we already had our Treasury Board presentation, but he's going to talk a little more about fundraising and volunteering that you can do other than that. If he's still on the call. Yeah.
Yes, I am. I might cut out though, because I'm having some technical issues, but basically for program board, we got most of our funding. We basically only didn't get funded for our equipment within the typical Wi-Fi. Didn't get funding for our technology and stuff that we need. Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, you guys froze for a second. So we're hoping to work to get additional funding for some sponsorships within WCUA.
Okay, I think he might have cut out. Yes.
Yeah, you got booted.
Okay. So I'll just basically talk about some of these points. So working on volunteering, like I talked about before, and fundraising with sponsorships is kind of our next steps as far as funding go. We're in talks right now with some businesses that actually are interested in sponsoring our podcast, so that's really exciting. But if you have any other ideas for fundraising ideas or volunteering that you think would be fun for us all to get involved in, you can email Max, Mike, or me with these ideas, and we can kind of start working on those all together and pass those out in emails or in the GroupMe as well. Finally, as far as scheduling goes, when we're in person, there is, an hour-long time slot. We kind of try and keep that idea a little bit as we're doing podcasting, but we have, 30-minute long podcasts, 45-minute, hour-long podcasts. So there is some flexibility with that now. Hopefully we can start having pilot programming or training programs once we're back in person, hopefully next semester, on how to use equipment in the studio. And then again, just helping with scripts, especially for that first episode if you are interested in making a podcast. Scheduling is going to be done in the future. You can email me or Alex Mackel, who pretty much handles most of our scheduling. Please join us on the Nest, because that's how you'll get email updates and things like that. And as well, if you could provide your email and number for the GroupMe, the numbers for the GroupMe, so that you can kind of stay informed on what's going on. And if you are interested in a podcast, this is the link to the podcast form. But I'll, of course, be able to send that to you if you don't get it from off of here. So if you're interested, just email me, let me know, or email Alex Mackel for scheduling.